Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Natalie. Welcome. I'm so happy that you've joined me. I am the founder of True Alignment Academy, and where we help nurses heal, nurses, healthcare workers heal and create an internal environment for success that changes your life because our external environment, our relationships, our career, our businesses, everything is just a reflection of what we have internally. And today we're going to talk about a heavy, heavy topic. This is super important. We're going to talk about shame. God placed this on my heart to bring to you today. And honestly, this topic is truly, it's life or death. It is life or death topic, whether that death looks like a physical death because shame will drive you there, an emotional death where it's deterioration from the inside, or a complete destruction of your internal environment and therefore is reflected in your external one. So before we get started, I just want to say I want to answer every single question that you have. I will at the end of the call because I want to make sure I don't lose my train of thought. I have some really important topics that I want to bring up today and discuss. So drop it in the chat if you're here with me live, hashtag live. And if you are back for the replay, please put hashtag replay and I honor you for being here. So let's get into it. Shame. One of the most effective ways to take someone out and destroy them is to fill them with shame. One of the most effective ways for self-destruction is shame. See, shame is a catalyst for destruction. It's a catalyst for self-destruction, and it truly begins to deteriorate you, your worth, everything about you. And it tells you that you're broken. It tells you that you're unfixable. Shame tells you that there's no way out. It locks you in a prison. It's that toxic judgment towards yourself that turns into lies. And that's what feeds you. And from those lies, that's how you create your life. From those lies that are inside of you, that is the filter from which you see and create everything over and over and over again. You know, with shame, you can't take any risks because you don't feel worthy. And so you're stuck in this imprisonment, right? And if you're, it's important that we reflect. And so I ask you from a non-judgmental space to gain awareness around yourself, around the way that you think, understanding that the brain is going to brain and that everything that we've ever done is from a place of creating safety for ourselves. So if it's your instinctual response to a situation that isn't going well, your first response is, well, I must not be good enough. Or how did I let this happen? Or how did I make this go wrong? It must be because I did something wrong. I wasn't smart enough. I ruined it. I messed it up. If that's your instinctual response when life happens or things don't go your way, or the business isn't going how it looks, or something happens at the bedside, if that's your instinctual response, I guarantee you're going to carry shame. Now, it's important to identify what's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is a healthy emotion. Okay, guilt comes up for a reason. It's trying to communicate with us. I'm so glad that we have guilt because it's a check on our conscience, right? Hey, you probably shouldn't have yelled at your kid. You probably need to go tell them you're sorry, right? If we don't acknowledge that guilt that's trying to come up and communicate with us, then we are missing out on an opportunity to change things, right? I mean, I'm grateful for guilt in this world, right? Can you imagine what the world would look like without it? See, and guilt, when it comes up, it's telling you something that you have done, right? I made a mistake. And you have the ability then to acknowledge it. Shame lies to you. Shame lies to you about who you are. So guilt tells you what you have done. Shame lies to you about who you are. Instead of I made a mistake, it is I am a mistake. Do you see the difference? Hey, Kathy. Yeah, our own Jiminy Cricket. Exactly. Navigating us through life. See, totally different. And the way that they present in our bodies is completely different. Guilt guides us. Shame identifies us in a destructive way and creates an identity of brokenness, of hopelessness, and total self-destruction. Shame perverts the belief system we have around worthiness, and it keeps you in this spiral of self-destruction. And shame is a doorway to a spiral and the story that we then tell ourselves, right? So shame opens this doorway. Okay, we feel this emotion, shame, and very quickly, most likely it is from an event, right? And very quickly we have shame, and that doorway opens, and then comes the story that we tell ourselves around the event that happens. I'm not smart enough. I'm broken. I'm messed up. I deserve to be punished. I deserve this crappy life, or maybe I deserve these crappy relationships. It must not be meant for me. The good life, the happiness, the business. It's meant for someone else. And that's the story from which we recreate everything. And that's that shame. Anytime anything happens, we will default to those stories. And then the shame comes up. And man, is it suffocating. I'm going to get into what it feels like in just a minute. For those of you on the call who have felt it before and understand it, drop it in the comments what it feels like for you. Shame from our past creates anxiety for the future. Shame from our past creates anxiety for the future. It is a doorway. It is a doorway in which a heavy, hard spiral then takes place. Now, how does shame feel in the body? I will tell you that I lived in shame for the majority of my life. I really identify it around 5 years old. And the best way I can describe it is like a suffocation. It makes you feel like you need to hide, like duck and cover, disappear. If I had only done this or that, yes, Kathy, I drown my own self with this emotion, holding myself under the water at times. Yes, suffocation, drowning, exactly. And the immediate instinct when shame comes up is to hide and to cover. In fact, most of the time, shames when you kick into fight or flight as shame comes up, the initial one is going to be flight and freeze. And you go into yourself and hibernate and isolate. And you isolate in this place of shames. And it's like a gut reaction. It's a visceral reaction when you feel shame. Pit of the stomach is always, in fact, I had stomach problems for years. No surprise, considering that's where I heavily felt it. It follows you, it trails you everywhere you go. I didn't go into anywhere with large crowds because the shame was so heavy that I would go into full anxiety. I didn't like people to even touch me because I was so full of shame that it would immediately trigger me to want to hide under a rock. The feeling of suffocation and drowning. What does shame do? It tells you that no matter what you do, you'll never measure up. So why even do it? It creates that hopelessness, right? So let's look at this. Why do we have it? Where does it come from? So shame comes from trauma. Trauma not being the event, as traumatic as the event may be. Shame comes from an event, a person, an event, and then we decide something about ourselves, right? So the event could be a betrayal. It could be abandonment. It could be a wound. But the shame truly is derived from the story that we tell ourselves. It was my fault. It was my fault. I did it wrong. I ruined it. Do you see how it's like this self-destruction in the story that we tell ourselves around the event or the person or what happened? A significant event. And shame can also come generationally. This is epigenetics, which that's a whole live on its own. So I'll just touch on it briefly. Shame can come generationally. We are born into a predisposition of feeling shame if your mother or your father felt it. If you come from a generational line of shame, especially considering the events that would take place for adultery or the events that has taken place in your past. If you look, I guarantee you can identify events down your lineage that have created shame. So that means that it is in your body on a cellular DNA level, transferred from generations upon generations. So we could very well be carrying our parents, our grandparents' shame. And that is embedded in us on a DNA level. So our predisposition to carry shame is even higher when you see it generations upon generations. And so then, that something comes up in your life and it's very easy to tell yourself the story, well, it must be my fault, especially in a child where something really bad happens. And the only logical explanation that they can give is, well, it must be me. It must be me. And I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a 4-year-old. Okay. And this girl was full of joy. I mean, she loved to dance. She loved to sing at the top of her lungs. And boy, did she love people. She had a heart for people. She also loved herself enough to go out there in the world and put her imprint on the world. She was a joy to be around. As she got into 5 or 6 years old, her parents started fighting. And as the parents fought, things got really physical, very violent. And she told herself a story. She told herself that it was her fault. Maybe she was too loud. Maybe she was too much. And so the parents continued to fight. It ended up in divorce. And that story, that truth was reinforced. So from that story, she started to feel the shame. It was just a little bit, right? And then she went on into elementary school and she was bullied in the schoolyard. And when normal kids would probably react to that as like their feelings got hurt, right? And run to their parents and talk about that, it internalized for her in a different way because of the story that she told herself before that. So the bullying was then internalized to, well, there's really something wrong with me. She had believed she made her parents start to fight. She was too much. And then it was reinforced through the bullying. And so that little bit of shame started to get bigger. She carries on through junior high where the bullying continues and the isolation got even worse. Because remember that the isolation is a natural default to when they feel shame. So this girl went through junior high and high school continuing to isolate. And anything in the outside world that happened to her was then internalized of, it must be something wrong with me. I'm the problem. Her love for people never changed. She loved with all of her heart. What changed was her love for herself because there was something wrong with her. So her love for people sent her into the medical field, where she knew she had a chance to save other people from the pain that she had felt growing up. So she goes into the medical field to try to fill the void where the shame lived, where the hate for herself was. And she continued to try to fill this void with all of these things: relationships, nursing, quick fixes, sex, drugs, all the things. She tried to continue to fill the void, always hearing that little voice in the back of her head that came around 5 or 6 years old. There's something wrong with you. It's really your fault. You're broken. And so she lived in this shame and continued to try to live her life until it became too much. And those voices got louder because they were reinforced with any external event that happened to her, because her default, her instinct was to say, this happened because it's my fault. I'm the one who's broken. Until she couldn't take it anymore, and the shame overpowered everything, and the hopelessness overpowered everything, and she tried to take her own life. Shame is self-destruction at the very root. When you decide something about yourself that it's your fault, especially at a young age, that's the lens from which everything else is created. Everything else. When you're so full of shame, there is no room for joy. There's that void that is filled with self-hatred. Right? Now the good news is that God had bigger plans for her. And she found a way to heal. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. I want to go into it a little bit further of how shame shows up in our life, because this is so important to be able to identify. Shame is something that grows. It's like a weed. Okay? And it just gets bigger and bigger. And it gets reinforced and reinforced. So shame comes as a cycle. We make a mistake, or maybe we engage in unhealthy behavior. And then we feel the shame and beat ourselves up. And then from that place, we try to resolve to change. And we set an unrealistic goal. Can anybody resonate with that? Right? It's like overcompensating and all that perfectionism bubbling up. And we set this completely unrealistic goal, having beat ourselves up from what we were doing just to be able to survive, or making that mistake after the story we told ourselves. So we were like, okay, I'm going to make a change. And we have this huge, massive goal, totally unrealistic. As we strive for that, you then become overwhelmed and act out in order to cope, or revert back to survival mode, or the original unhealthy behavior that this whole cycle started with. Make a mistake, you feel shame, beat yourself up, create an unrealistic goal to compensate, and you're back in this spiral over and over and over again. Totally relatable, yes. And that is the vicious cycle, and it goes over and over and over again. From that shame comes anger, humiliation, insecurity, self-doubt, self-judgment. And that shame and fear of the future, remember that past shame creates anxiety for the future, in addition to fear that turns to overwhelm, which will immediately take you into the cycle of paralyzation, flight, and victimization. This is how anyone who harbors shame can very easily pop over into the victim role and stay stuck in that, because that's what victims do. That's where their comfort zone is. Life is happening to me. And yet I don't want to change, because my baseline is my comfort zone, and that baseline is self-hatred and self-judgment. And I just wish somebody would save me, but the only person that can save you is you. The shame drives social anxiety. Like I said before, I would go into a room and totally get that pit in my stomach. I mean, literally, I can't even tell you how many times I walked into a room. People probably weren't even looking at me, but towards my direction. And it was like fire from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I ran out of there because I couldn't stand it. Social anxiety, isolation, total disconnection from others. And shame especially causes disconnection with yourself. You can't even look at yourself because the shame is so thick, because there must be something wrong with you. And if you were to dare look at yourself from a place of awareness, it would be dangerous. That's exactly how I felt in the shame spiral. So if that is you, I want you to know I see you, and there is a way. As you get further into the shame and you allow this shame to continue in your life without an intervention, you begin neglecting yourself. And it starts with the inability to ask for your unmet needs, right? Why would you even advocate for yourself whenever you're broken? You can't be fixed. So you start with the neglection of yourself, and then it turns into apathy. Other things to look for is over apologizing. Because if you are the true problem, according to the belief in your head, it is overwhelming. It's extremely overwhelming. Shame is one of the most suffocating emotions that there is. Very toxic. Yes. Over apologizing. So if you're constantly saying that you're sorry for what you're doing, you need to reflect, where's that being driven from? If the belief is, I ruin everything, then of course your natural response is going to be over apologizing. Overthinking, oversharing, that visceral response to a no, in or anything, disagreement or anything even remotely close to it. And imagine trying to navigate relationships or a business when your first response to even the slightest hint of rejection is a visceral response, and then it's complete, it's like a drowning. And then you revert back to isolation and revert back into yourself. Again, reinforcing the belief, there's something wrong with me. I knew this would happen. It would all fall apart because your brain will then reinforce your belief around that by pulling up all the memories that you have, reinforcing that lie in your head that it was me. I'm broken. I'm unfixable. And it also causes walking on eggshells. So I'll ask you, when something doesn't work out, when something fails, you didn't get the job that you wanted, you didn't close the client, things have been tougher than you expected, relationship didn't work out, what story do you tell yourself? I'm a failure? Does it cause self-doubt in your abilities? Does it make you go back to your identity? And is your identity attached to the situation? Absolutely, Kathy. Walking on eggshells around your own self, because the truth of it is, when you've harbored shame, to face yourself, especially coming from a place where that belief is that you are everything wrong, would be fatal. So therefore, the disconnection and the disassociation, which leads to the apathy, is real. It's self-preservation mode, actually. So when something doesn't work out, what story do you tell yourself? Does it go back to your identity? Does it go back to your worth? Is your worth and who you are connected to the outcome of things around you? So if you continue to live with this shame inside of you, what happens if we don't do anything? I'll ask you right now, after really identifying it and reflecting on the shame in your life, what's the price of this shame in your life? What's the real price that you're paying? How you show up daily, your business, your relationships with people as well as yourself. Now I'm going to talk about what emotion is for a second, okay? Because yes, shame falls under the emotional category. It's just one of the most toxic ones. It is actually the most toxic emotion. So an emotion is a frequency or an energy that is sent throughout the body. And three things happen when we experience an emotion. The first thing is that the body generates an emotional vibration or frequency. And that frequency, that's a vibration that gets sent out. You can feel that in the room, as long as you're not completely disassociated, because you have to be able to feel it within yourself. But most people can feel that in the room. Again, if you can't feel the room, you can't feel yourself. And so when you walk into the room, you know pretty quickly what the vibe is, right? You can walk into the room and you're like, ooh, something's wrong, or I can cut the tension with a knife. You feel that vibration from someone else. So we send out these signals. And also understand this, that if you can't lead other people if you don't know how you feel. And if you harbor shame, I guarantee you the last thing that you're going to want to do is to identify how you feel and really dig into that, right? It's not safe. So I want you to notice what top 3 feelings you have right now. Just allow yourself to notice, what are the top 3 feelings you're feeling right now? And think about your most common emotions that you feel. On a daily basis, what is the most common emotions that you feel? That is where your emotional baseline is. All right, now keep that in mind. I'm going to build on that. So the second thing that happens when we experience an emotion is we interpret the vibration. All right. And this is where you identify what it is that you're feeling. And then the third thing is we decide, we process that emotion. And sometimes people can't stand to or don't understand what that means to process their emotions, which is why the nervous system is off kilter. Most of society doesn't understand this, but essentially when you process that emotion, you pull the emotion up and you process it. This is a conscious decision. We decide to process the emotion and release it because it's just coming up to tell us something, and we acknowledge it and let it go, or sometimes we hang on to it. All right, the more extreme the emotion, the higher probability of where it's going to get trapped. What does that mean? That means that that emotion or vibration gets trapped inside the body and then starts to feed off of itself. And it starts to create physical symptoms. See, when an emotion gets trapped in the body, it picks the most vulnerable part of the body to go to. If you have a tumor or cancer or back pain or an autoimmune disorder or kidney disorder, that is the location in which it's going to go in the body, and it's going to physically get trapped in there. And then as it feeds on itself, because once it's pushed down and we really hang on to it, it starts to really feed on itself as it's locked into this place physically in your body. It begins to attract emotions on the same level as it is. So if you're full of shame, you begin to attract similar emotions: hopelessness, self-doubt, judgment, all of these things, right? If you're full of joy and enthusiasm, those are the emotions in which you start to attract. Then your reticular activating system, as it begins to attract these, is only matching with things in your life that match what is trapped inside of you. Okay, now your emotion is a vibration in your body. Okay, a healthy human body has a vibrational frequency range of between 62 and 70 megahertz. That is a healthy human body. Human cells actually start to change and mutate when their frequency drops below 62 megahertz. And this is when illness really sets in. So apathy vibrates at 50. Guilt vibrates at 30. Death starts to happen in the body at 25 megahertz. Shame vibrates at 20 megahertz. That means that your body is in active death whenever you trap shame. It literally kills you from the inside out. That trapped shame inside your body, attached to the most vulnerable part of you, is killing you. It is killing you. If you have pain, if you have shame in your body, which will bring pain as well, it's driving your unworthiness. It's driving your brokenness. It is driving your not good enough. Because the reticular activating system will then find as many facts as it can to substantiate and prove these things true, that you ruin it, you're broken, you're unworthy, and it reinforces it over and over and over again. Your internal environment creates your external environment. And this is what you continue to create in your life. What is in here and what's trapped in here? So what's on the other side of shame? Shame is something that you can't just get rid of. You can't just wake up one day. I mean, I wish that'd be great, right? And say, all right, today I'm not going to feel shame. Because I guarantee you, if you have been struggling with it over a long period of time, it is trapped inside your body. So there isn't an option to just wake up one day and say, nope, I'm just going to decide that I'm not going to feel it anymore. See, in order to heal the very root of the shame, it has to start with the person or the event initially where you told yourself a story. Again, what is trauma? Trauma is not the event, as traumatic as it may be. The real trauma is that influence coupled with a deep emotion, and in that moment we decide something about ourselves. And that's the reality we continue to recreate over and over and over again. Shame is the result of that story. So to get rid of the shame, you have to get rid of the beliefs around the event. Because shame can't survive in an environment when the belief that created it is rewired and healed. Everything starts with you. Everything starts with you. Only you can save you here. Only then can you enable the people around you to embody these things. Only then can you begin to give. See, if all you have inside of you is shame and guilt and not good enough and brokenness, you are a cup, and what is inside of you flows out. So on the other side of shame, there is your voice, there is your power, there's your truth, and there's your worth, regardless of anything that happens, because your identity is not attached to the events in your life. And there is unconditional self-love. That is the exact opposite of shame, and there is zero judgment in that space. I lived with shame for the majority of my life. And when there's shame, there's no room for joy. There's no room for love. There's no room for anything else. It is suffocating. I'm on the other side of that. And I'm here to tell you that it's possible for you too. It is absolutely possible. You don't have to go another day, another month, another year drowning and suffocating in it. Guys, this is exactly what we do in my program. Is we go back to that reticular activating system and we heal from the deepest root, and we pluck that root of shame out so that you have an opportunity to fill the void with something else. To fill the void with joy and fulfillment and love for yourself. And from that place, you are unstoppable. You can create anything you want. And that's where it has to start. So if you're out there trying to create something and you know you have a higher calling for your life and you are drowning, or you're at a place where you can't see the point of living anymore, I'm telling you this, I understand because I've been there, and there is a point. There is another side of the coin, and it is incredible. It is incredible. Because you are meant to be here, and there is a purpose on your life. And I guarantee you what you are going to create on the other side of it, it's going to blow your mind. Hop on a call with me. Let's talk about it. There's a link below here. I want you to hop on a call with me if that's you. Because I'm telling you that once you can release the shame, the drowning, and the suffocation, there is so much to live for. There is so much to live for. And from that place on the other side, anything is possible. Anything. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you know someone who really needs to see this, please invite them in the group and tag them in this video. All right, we'll see you next week.